good evening. My name is Sigifredo Perez. I'm the chair of the commission. I'll call this meeting now to order. Today is Wednesday, May 8th. It's 5:30 p.m. We start off with roll call. I'm present, Sigifredo Perez. Mr. Saba Zapata, absent. Ms. Adriana Alexander, absent. Mr. Mark Pease,
Present.
Mr. Hector Lee Patiño, absent. Mr. Frank Castillo, absent. Mr. Vidal Cantu,
Present.
Mr. Henry Herford,
Present.
Ms. Elsa Galvan.
Present.
I believe we have a quorum? Yes, well, okay, very good. Go ahead and proceed to item number 2, general citizen communications. We have one person who has signed up, Mr. Vish Visanath. Mr. Visanath, I think you've spoken before the commission before, so you're familiar with the protocol, the rules? That is 3 minutes?
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Name is Viswanath for the record. I'm coming here with a concern that I have, which actually I think should be one of your concerns. In the previous city council meeting 2 days ago, there was an agenda item in the city council meeting where a public integrity officer was supposed to be appointed there's a motion for that. But what the position says is the public integrity officer will look into ethics complaints. So that's where I'm coming to you. Because if you remember in the previous meeting you all had, you were going to look back at what all you have got and what teeth you have to have more for the ethics group here to do a better job. Now, appointing we already have, the ethics are going to the city attorney's office. They are the ones who receive them. They also serve as your counsel. Now, if you are going to put another bureaucrat, I'm calling that person a bureaucrat within the city who is going to be looking at the ethics complaints, then what's the purpose of you all sitting here? It dilutes the purpose of you all sitting here. To me, I have always said this group is not strong enough. I would rather have more teeth in your group so you can do things much better. That's not what this will do. This will dilute what you all are doing. So I request that what happened was it was a long meeting on Monday. Because of that, this item did not come up for discussion and it was tabled for the next meeting, which is coming up 2 weeks from now. I believe it's 21st. I could be wrong on the date. What I'm requesting you is, you guys need to look at that motion very closely. Because if there's going to be another bureaucrat sitting between you all and the city employer, city management and city council, your job is useless. There's no point for you all to be sitting here. So I think you should take a stand. And what we need to happen is this council has to become independent of the city council and the city management. So you have some teeth in what all you are doing. If you're going to put one more bureaucrat in between to curtail that in between you two, that's even more worse. Just to bring it to your attention, if you already know it, that's great. If not, please go to the city council and wonder why this is happening rather than giving you more powers. Thank you very much. I'll be available if you have a question on this because I was there in that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We only had one speaker, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. We proceed to item number 3. We have the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
To approve?
To approve.
Is there a second? Second, Mr. Herford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Okay, next item, Ms. Paul, we have an executive session. Did we need to go into an executive session?
If you also choose to get legal advice on the matters before you, you may do so, and
Okay.
under the provisions that are provided
Okay.
there in the agenda.
Can I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make a motion, we go into executive session.
Seconded.
Mr. P. seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. It is now 5:34.
And just to be clear, that the particular provision that we're going out would be for executive session for private consultation with legal counsel under sections 551.071
Personnel
and
matters.
or section 551.074 of the Texas Open Meetings Act.
That is correct, consistent with the item on the agenda. Thank you. Okay, we're back on the record. Time is 6:04. Mr. Patiño is present, so he will join us, and I'll take him off as being absent. Okay, no action was taken. The next item on the agenda is item number 5, discussion with possible action as to consideration by commission regarding section 8.02J of the City of Laredo Code of Ethics. Ms. Paul, that has to do with nomination and election of the chair and vice chair, is that correct?
Yeah,
Well,
Yes.
it was a recusal, so it can be tabled.
Okay, that was is that why the item was there? It was relating to an existing
Yes.
member?
Yes.
Henry,
Yeah.
make a motion.
I'm not sure, when is it that you
On file.
nominate and elect the chair
We
and the
can do
vice
it
chair?
right now and get it out of the way.
When does that take place?
That's the next one where it's number 5.
No, but that doesn't say about that, that's fine.
What?
I'd like to,
Hold on, Mr. Herford. Ms. Paul, when is it when the chair and the vice chair are nominated and elected?
At the beginning of the years when it's been done, or when we have, at the beginning of the year.
So is it yearly or every 2 years, or how long is that?
It's every
My
year.
understanding, it's every year.
It's every year, it's a renewable every year.
The reason is that some of the members of the commission wanted to go ahead and address that point through this
Yeah.
item, which is to nominate and elect chair and vice chair. Is that possible today?
Let me just,
Yes, it's number 5 on the agenda.
okay.
Number 5 on the agenda.
Okay.
What? But you read what it says, that's what it says.
Okay. Yes, you can do it under, chair and, there, yes. That's what it,
Okay, so then that can go forward, correct?
yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we do item 5 for the chair and vice chair of the Ethics Commission.
What is your motion to nominate?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Pettis and Mr. Pettis for chair and Mr. Peace for vice chair.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? None? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, that takes care of that out of the way.
Okay, next item is item number 6, discussion with possible action regarding complaint made pursuant to section 2.11 of the City of Laredo's Code of Ethics against Ms. Luxandra Guerra in her capacity as Airport Security Office Supervisor, alleging the following violations of the City of Laredo Code of Ethics, sections 2.05C, representation of private interests, 2.06A, public property and resources, section 2.08A, actions of others, and section 2.03, gifts. Ms. Paul?
Okay. Okay, I'll make a presentation, a summary. My name is Lisa Paul, and I serve as the Ethics Compliance.
Excuse me, is there any way of turning the volume up on that
On
speaker
this?
system?
We'll see if we can get their attention.
Knock on the window or something. Probably because I'm deaf, but that's a side issue.
Oh, to use a microphone? Okay, is this better?
Oh, yeah.
I can hear myself and I echo. Okay. My name is Lisa Paul, and I serve as the Ethics Compliance Officer on behalf of the City of Laredo. I'll provide a short summary regarding this item. The allegations to be heard against Luxandra Guerra are before this commission pursuant to Section 2.11 of the Code of Ethics, which requires employees having knowledge of an ethics violation to report such violation. These allegations were brought forward after $655.16 in cash was discovered in a desk, in the desk of an employee who had been separated from the city. An audit commenced to determine the origin of the unidentified monies. The audit was subsequently expanded after the audit revealed cash contributions were received and expenditures were made as a part of a Gray Santa program, which is a non-city sponsored event. Specifically, what the findings that the audit revealed was Luxandra Guerra, an airport security manager working at the City of Laredo International Airport, had job duties that included providing police protection, law enforcement for city property and resources, ensuring controlled access to the ramp area, coordinating routine security activities, among other duties. And instead, Ms. Guerra used a great deal of her workday to promote and solicit donations for the Gray Santa program. The city resources that were used were the forms of email correspondence, city time. While she was at work, instead of performing her job duties, she worked on this particular event and program. The city's tax exempt certificate was also used to purchase material supplies that were not a part of the municipality. They were for the program, but that tax exempt certificate was used. She solicited donations in the form of cash and checks made out specifically to her, as well as soliciting gift cards. The lack of accounting practices prevented the auditor from reconciling all of the donations received. Donations were solicited from at least 2 airport tenants. One of the tenants who Ms. Guerra solicited a donation from had an ongoing dispute with the city during the fall of 2018 when the donation was solicited and the donation was made. Ms. Guerra, as a supervisor working in the security area of the airport, was aware of that dispute and would have been involved with contacting and enforcing certain contract terms and conditions against that particular tenant. There was also donations received from a particular contractor doing business with the city. The letter that Ms. Guerra used to solicit the donations was misleading, as it appeared that it was the City of Laredo Airport Police Department sponsoring the event. Ms. Guerra used the tax exemption certificate for the non-city related purchases, and the tax certificate application states, quote, various items as utilized by the municipality, and those items were not utilized by the municipality. It was for the Gray Santa program. There are representatives here on behalf of the city that are available to provide testimony to the commission, including the internal auditor for the city, as well as the auditor who worked on preparing the audit. We also have the acting airport manager, as well as 2 of the officers working at the Laredo International Airport Police Department that are available to provide testimony to you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Guerra, are you present? Okay. Are you going to go ahead and provide any testimony, ma'am? Yes. Okay, can you please come forward, and the council have Ms. Veronica Urbano Baeza, Ms. Elia Rodriguez, Ms. Elsie Borgstedt, Mr. Javier De Hoyos, and Ms. Joanna Jimenez. Come forward, please. What I want to do is swear everybody in. That way I can swear everybody in, and then we'll go ahead and hear from Ms. Guerra first, and then we'll hear from you all. You can just please come forward. And this is posed to all of you. Please, all of you raise your right hand. Do each of you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, and please have a seat, and Ms. Guerra, please proceed.
My name is Luxandra Guerra. I worked as a airport security supervisor. Yes, I was in charge of the Gray Santa. I never did this with malintentions. It was all done for the kids. Ms. Paul, she said something about me soliciting money. Yes, I did solicit the money. I never had any training on the cash handling. Never did the city provide a training. So I didn't know what was, that it was wrong. Once one of the city contractors came to give a donation, Mr. Maldonado, which was the airport director back then, he said that we were doing everything wrong, that we could not be accepting any checks anymore. So we stopped that, and we opened a non-profit organization under the Gray Santa. Now, Ms. Paul also mentioned that I solicit some donations from a company that was having issues with the airport. I never got any money from that tenant that she's mentioning. I believe who that tenant is, but that tenant never gave any donations. Now they're saying that there was some discrepancy in the audits. Yes, there was a discrepancy, but there was some receipts that are missing. They filed some charges against me with the Laredo PD. The investigator called me over, and never did they showed me what discrepancies were missing on the audit until I went with Laredo PD and they showed me, yes, there was all the receipts that I paid in cash were missing. And who only had access to that, which is Ms. Elsie Borgestad, which is the airport director, and Captain De Hoyos were the only ones that had access to those receipts, because those receipts were kept in Chief Infante's office under lock. Never did I have any access to the money or the receipts, because Chief Infante always kept them in his desk. Before Chief Infante got fired, 1 week before he got fired wrongfully, we counted all those receipts and we counted all the money, and everything was accounted for. And then they took a month later, before he got fired, to come to the auditors and say and turn in that envelope to them. They went through my filing cabinet, which is under lock in my locker, through Ms. Borgestad's orders, just to go through it like if I was a criminal. And they took away that gray Santa envelope, which Chief Infante had sealed with all the receipts. Then a week later, they turned it into the auditor's department. Everything that I did was to put a smile for those kids in Christmas. I have letters from the places that we did the Gray Santa program, and they all were satisfied with what the outcome of the Gray Santa. Now, the Gray Santa was not the first year this year. This was the 5th year. This was the biggest year that we had more gifts. If you go to the city, you can look, there's a lot of toys that were left. And like I said, this is the 5th year. The previous officer that was in charge, he would get donations from contractors from the city, from tenants from the city. How come now that I was in charge, now they're saying that I committed violation, when the other officers that were in charge in the previous ones did get donations from these people also? And I think this is very unfair. If we're gonna talk about work ethics, let's talk about work ethics in the department. There's a lot of things going on in the department that I brought over to human resources, and they never did anything about it. And now because it was me, yes, because they had this against me because I was part of Chief Infante's, he was the one that hired me. And because we were doing everything right, they had it against me. We wanna talk about work ethics, let's talk about work ethics. We have a sergeant that would clock in a captain when he was at his house, and clocked him in when he was not working. Let's talk about work ethics. 2, when you have a captain receiving gifts from an officer, and then that officer having special privileges there, when the assistant airport director, Elsie Borgestad, knows about this and has not done anything about it. I filed a complaint against HR. You can talk to Ms. Third Kettle. There's a written complaint before all this happened. You have a sergeant that was getting there every day late for months and months and making her own schedule. But since she was the one that clocked in Captain De Hoyos, now she was getting special treatment. Let's talk about work. That's work ethics. I did this for the kids of our community and put a smile to these kids. I did this before in Rio Bravo, and I never had any money missing. You can check, nothing was missing. Everything that I solicited was for the kids. And after I found out by Mr. Maldonado that we were doing everything wrong on the cash handling, we stopped everything. And that's when I opened a nonprofit organization. So I did anything wrong. If I did, then I did. But I never did it with malintention. I didn't have a training for cash handling. Never did I have a training. So I didn't know what was going on. But when I knew, I stopped everything and I did everything the way it had to be.
I have 2 questions. These things that you observe, the fact that the sergeant was clocking in the captain and so forth, did you make an ethics claim about that?
I went to risk management. Risk management referred me to human resources. I put it in, human resource told me that I had to put it in writing, and I did.
You put it in writing
Yes,
and
I did,
submitted
sir.
it at that time.
Before anything of this happened.
Is there any record of that complaint?
I'm not aware of the complaint
Could
filed
you
with
look in to
HR.
see if there's a record of that complaint? Second question I had, were you aware that you were doing this during city time?
Okay, that's what I was gonna go, I forgot to mention it. First, I would do my duties. First of all, our duties as supervisors, they would
Excuse
keep
me, let me clarify the question. You have, how much are you being paid for per day?
$18.
No, not the money, the time.
The what?
Were you contracted for 8 hours a day?
Yes,
Okay, of those 8 hours, okay, irrespectively what your duties were you dedicating any of those to the Gray Santa?
yes, but,
Okay, don't say but, because you knew right off the bat that that should have been wrong, because you were dedicating money that people in this city were paying you to do their work, not the Gray Santa.
I was doing the work. My job was looking at the cameras, and I was there in the camera system, and I was just sending emails through my email, but looking at the cameras. Our as supervisors, they don't have us outside. They would have us monitoring the cameras all times. But I would get out from the office, but before I would do anything, I would ask permission from the chief. If the airport was covered with officers, he would say, okay, you can work an hour in calling people to ask for donations. But I would not dedicate my 8 hours doing the whole Gray Santa.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Ms. Guerra, so you're saying that your chief was fully aware of this Gray Santa?
yes, sir, because this Gray Santa is the 5th annual.
You're saying the chief at the airport police department?
Yes,
Okay. And before your employment with the city, did you ever undergo any ethics training?
no,
So you weren't familiar with this code of ethics?
No.
You didn't know that it applied to you?
no,
Had you ever heard of it?
no.
When was the first time you heard of it?
This, when I received the letter,
Are you aware of any other officers at the city of Laredo Airport Department who've been referred to for violations of the ethics code?
No.
No?
That brings us to another question. In the entrance, when she signs in as an employee, isn't there a section where she reads the ethics and signs that she has read that?
It is on the checklist of information that is provided to employees when they onboard. That is mine.
So you should have known it, whether you read it or not, that's a different problem. But if you signed, and there's a signature, you sign it, then you did know, or should have known, about ethics.
but not about cash handling,
What?
not about the cash handling,
No, I didn't ask you.
No.
I asked about ethics.
yeah.
Okay.
Do any other members of the commission have any further questions?
You mentioned that this Gray Santa program has been around for 5 years.
Yes, it was the 5th annual this year.
Now, you've been employed with the city
Just
airport
one.
for 1 year.
Yes, yes, sir.
And do we know who was handling this program for the past 4 years?
I'm not too sure. I know the previous officer was, Officer,
Or during
he
the
was
audit?
terminated also.
Or maybe this is a question more for the audit department to see if they were able to investigate that or something, just to get an idea as to how this program was being handled then, and, you know, what differences
Yeah,
it was then to now to what you're.
yeah, I didn't know how it was handled. I just know that the previous officer that was in charge, he would get donations from tenants and contractors from the city. Because one of the contractors came up to me and he said he had already donated from the previous officer, the one, I think Ms. Paul mentioned. But the one that she mentioned about me knowing that there was an existence, in a situation with the city, you can check, we never received any donation from that tenant that she mentioned. Also, everything that, like I said, everything that we did, it was for the smile of those kids. We have videos, we have pictures, we have letters from those places that we went, and they were so happy that we did this, because there were some that it was their first time that they thought about them in this program, the Gray Santa. But this Gray Santa, they never told me that I had to go through commission or that I had to go through somebody to get it approved, because it was already there, it was already established. So I just came in and took over it. So there was nothing in writing that I had to.
Any other questions?
I have a question, Ms. Guerra. How did you become involved in this program?
Chief Infante, because Chief Infante had, the previous officer got terminated. So Chief Infante wanted to continue with the Gray Santa to help out the children, the most needy children here in Laredo. So he asked me if I had any knowledge of doing any programs like that. I said, yes, I had done one for Rio Bravo, when I was working for Rio Bravo, I had done one for the city and it was successfully. So he said, okay, so now you're gonna be in charge of the Gray Santa. He put me in charge, and Sergeant Jimenez, who is present here right now, in charge of the Gray Santa. Also, that's how I got involved, yeah. I also wanted to make, for the record, on the receipts that were missing, that were not turned into audits, there's, I have witnesses that purchased items that I gave them cash, my volunteers, that I gave them cash to go purchase the items, but those receipts are missing. And one of them is Sergeant Jimenez, where I purchased, I think, 6 or 8 bicycles at Vargas Imports, and they provided me a receipt under the City of Laredo Gray Santa, and that receipt is missing. And there was some other receipts that I have witnesses that went to purchase items that on the wish list, that were on the wish list for the children, that went with me, and those receipts are gone. Where? No. Like I said, the only ones that had access to that is Captain Deos and Airport Director Elsie Borgeset, Acting Airport Director Elsie Borgeset. And I do recall that Captain Deos called me one time and he said that they could go through all my stuff because it was ordered by Acting Airport Director Elsie Borgeset.
How did you get a hold of the exempt number for the tax exempt of the city?
Captain Deos provided it to me.
Ms. Guerra, who is Carlos Longoria?
Who is he? He's one of the officers there in the department.
At the City of Laredo Airport
Yes.
Department? And Reynaldo Infante,
He was an ex-chief,
he was a chief when you
the
were
one
there?
that could, yes,
He was the one that you indicated earlier to me that had full knowledge of your participation in
Yes.
the Gray Santa program?
yes, sir. And Carlos Longoria was one of the volunteers that helped me out. It was Carlos Longoria, Pedro Vasquez, and Sergeant Jimenez that helped me out on when we went to do some toy drives at Walmart.
But Carlos Longoria was also an officer.
Yes, he's still an officer there in the airport.
He's still there?
Yes, yes, sir.
Any other questions from the commission?
I've got a question. When you first started this, were you warned, or when you started employment with the city, did they give you the policies of what the city was, like employees cannot handle cash, they can't use letterheads, computers, city computers for personal business?
No,
You
sir.
informed of that?
No, sir.
Any other members of the commission have any questions? Okay, Ms. Guerra, thank you very much. Do you have anybody to present on your behalf other than yourself?
No, just myself.
Thank you. This time, let me go ahead and call some of the other witnesses we have here, starting off with Ms. Veronica Urbano Baeza, please. And you've already been sworn into. Ms. Urbano, can you identify what it is that you've done with respect to what we're hearing today?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Commissioners. Veronica Baeza
Put
with
that thing up
Internal
closer
Audit.
to your mouth.
Sorry. Veronica Baeza with Internal Audit. In regards to what our responsibilities were, we were advised, I think beginning on February the 25th, that there were unaccounted monies that were found at the airport department, specifically the airport security division. The way that we began the audit, anytime that there's unidentified monies, is we'll go in and we'll conduct an actual cash audit, and then we'll try to see if there's any supporting documentation to be able to reconcile those monies, and at the same time to try to identify what they pertain to. In this particular case, we were advised that they pertain to a Christmas toy donation program at the airport, referred to as the Gray Santa program. There was no supporting documentation to be able to reconcile the monies that we found. So in essence, at that point, anytime that we find that we're advised that there's monies that have been found, we'll go ahead and we'll do an inspection of the areas to see if there's any additional monies. Or in this particular case also, if we could find any additional documentation to be able to attempt to reconcile the monies that had been found. So we went ahead and we proceeded with that. And then as part of that, we in turn started conducting interviews with some of the pertinent airport personnel staff. And in essence, we began what became an audit for accountability of the program. Even though the monies, we deemed them to be non-city funds because there's really no authorization for the program or for the monies themselves, we still went ahead and we tried to see if we could reconcile the actual revenues and expenditures that we found as per the documentation that we were able to pull up. Additionally, we did speak to Ms. Guerra, and we asked her if she could provide anything that she had, considering the fact that she was in essence taking care of the program itself. Based off of that, we really were not able to reconcile. I want to say that we had a figure of about $970, give or take, that we didn't have documentation to be able to account for that amount. Yes, $970.18. And in essence, you know, it really comes down to the documentation. As long as you have documentation to be able to show the contributions that were received, and then the expenditures that were made out, then the hope is that you can close that gap. And while you can't close that gap, you know, in essence, there's either monies that are unaccounted for or documentation that would be able to account for it just isn't available. From what we could see, based off of that testing and that analysis, is that there just isn't, you know, good accountability in place for this program. There really wasn't good accountability in place for it. There were no good internal controls to be able to take care of this program. And so ultimately, you know, that's where we're at now. In addition to that, you know, as part of our review, and in reviewing a lot of the documentation, you know, obviously we saw that all of the copies of the checks that we pulled were all made out to Ms. Guerra. As part of our interviews and in speaking to Ms. Guerra, one of the main things that we look for when it comes to a program like this is that it has a nonprofit status. You know, at the very elementary level, that it has a corresponding bank account. And obviously it didn't have a bank account. That was confirmed to us from the very beginning. The process of, you know, applying for and beginning the nonprofit status had started in November, but it hadn't been completed yet. Basically everything that had been received was received prior to starting the application for the nonprofit status. There were a few instances that we noted from the copies of checks that we received, where there were copies of checks noted from airport tenants. One in particular being the one that Ms. Paul referenced, where the city was having issues with that particular tenant. We do have a copy of that check on file with us right now. In addition to that, there was also a donation initially that was received from one of the contractors that is currently working on a project over at the airport. It's our understanding that back at that time, I believe it was November of last year, that contractor came forward to airport administration requesting a receipt for their donation. At that time, the airport director we were told that the airport director advised both Ms. Guerra and the airport security manager at the time that that was just not allowed. It was a violation of the cash handling policies. And the instructions were for that check to be returned back to the contractor. We were able to confirm that it was. The check was voided. However, the contractor ended up providing or donating some gift cards to the program. Irregardless, you know, even gift cards have a monetary value. So whether it's cash, a check, or a gift card, you're still accepting some form of a monetary contribution. What else? We also went and pulled, in the interest of being able to see if we could find any more documentation that could possibly close that reconciliation gap, we went ahead and pulled any and all city court email correspondence that would reference the Gray Santa program. And so within some of that correspondence, we found references to where Ms. Guerra was giving instructions, if you will, to some of the people that were contributing that, you know, in the event that they were going to make out a check to the program, that it needed to be made out in Ms. Guerra's name. Additionally, there was another item that we found that was, you know, pretty concerning in regards to a contribution that had been made. I believe it was a gift card donation. In certain instances, the practice was, or it appeared, that Ms. Guerra would provide a copy of the receipt and a picture of what was purchased to the contributor. In this particular instance, that happened, and the contributor turned around and you know, asked if they could provide some referral forms for some of their patients. So that sort of set off a red flag in our eyes. And so I guess I know it's a lot of information that we provided as part of the report, but to kind of, you know, bring it back together, the crux of it was ultimately to come in and to take a look at the accountability and the internal controls of the program itself. And in our opinion, there just was no accountability and there weren't proper internal controls.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Levin. Do any members of the commission have any questions of? Please.
No, I don't have anything.
Did you investigate only 2018, or did you go further back into the program?
What we did was we had, initially when we started the audit, we did talk to airport security personnel, and it was confirmed, and airport administration, it was confirmed that the program has been in existence probably since 2014. What we were told was that it was strictly a toy donation program. So in essence, what would happen was that, you know, they would keep it within the confines of the airport per se, and they would place, I guess, like toy donation boxes in different locations. And I guess once the boxes were filled up, they would go ahead and go pick them up, and then they would turn around and donate to the organization that was benefiting from the toy drive that year.
So there was no cash donations done in previous year?
No.
This past year was the first year that they solicited cash donations?
Yes, sir. Yes, we couldn't identify any cash contributions that were received in previous years.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question. How many people were involved in this Christmas program?
I think, well, primarily, I would say that the airport security manager at the time, Ms. Guerra, I think there were maybe like a couple of other employees that were involved in some capacity, but very minimally, and probably more so in a voluntary capacity as well. because what we were told was that some of them, were, asked to go and volunteer to wrap toys or to go to, let's say, a toy drive that was being held. So in essence, I think that for the most part, you had maybe about 2 or 3 employees that maybe were, pretty involved in the process, that I guess, if you will, the day-to-day operations of the program itself. But then you had, other employees that would volunteer their time for some of these other items.
How many employees are there?
Within airport security,
Yes.
I don't know, Elsie? 20.
So somehow 20 employees would not all at the same time participate, but have some kind of contribution to this type of a program.
Probably so. I mean, I wouldn't be able to identify them for you, but that's our understanding, was that there were instances where some employees would volunteer their time
Were they-
after hours.
Were they doing it during their work hours or after work hours?
I think in the instances where they were volunteering their time, it was probably after hours. But that's
Or
something that
probably,
we would have to confirm that.
okay, so you don't really know the answer.
Right, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Ms.
Well, I
Rodriguez?
do have one more question before you go.
Huh?
Did you all look at the entrance paperwork on the lady that you work on the paper?
Yes,
Did you
sir.
see anywhere in there where they were advised of handling cash or ethics?
We did pull the personnel file for the employee, and we were able to confirm that there is a checklist. If you'll give me a minute, I can pull it. But there is a checklist that's pretty much standard in every employee's personnel file, and it's part of the, if you will, the new employee orientation that occurs as the employee first comes into the
And
city.
it talks about handling cash?
Cash, no, because I think in this particular instance, cash wasn't a responsibility of this particular position, or cash handling wasn't a
What
responsibility.
about ethics in general?
Ethics, I believe there's ethics is included in this particular case. At the time of the new employee orientation, excuse me, I'm so sorry. At the time of the new employee orientation, the following items are reflected as having been covered. Customer service plan, workplace violence policy, sexual and other forms of harassment policy, municipal civil service rules and regulations, acknowledgement form, workers' compensation procedures, safety procedures, drug and alcohol policy, their benefits, their Texas municipal retirement system, and a code of ethics. In this particular case, the employee is asked to initial after a discussion of each of the items. The only item that's not initialed is the code of ethics. But then in talking to the acting airport director, there have been ethics trainings that have been conducted and have been attended after the fact.
Seems to me that we need a section in that thing that also talks about cash. You know, because we never know what's gonna come up in the way of cash individually, like this Santa thing.
Sure, yes, sir.
And I have a feeling we need to have that in there. That might be a recommendation we make.
Sure,
Okay, thank you.
absolutely, yes, sir.
Ms. Elia Rodriguez? Yes. Do you have anything to add, ma'am? Okay. All right, just want to make sure if there was anything that Ms. Urbano missed, perhaps?
Anything that I missed?
Ms. Guerra is mentioning that we don't have copy of the bicycles. We have copy of the receipts. I just wanted to mention.
Somehow
that.
you're not coming across.
Right, you have to pick it up higher, sorry. What Ms. Rodriguez is indicating is that there was mentioned previously, one in regards to the check from the tenant that was never received. We do have a copy of that. And then that there was also receipts that were missing. One in particular referenced the purchase of about 6 bicycles. And we have a copy of that receipt as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Elsie Borgstead? Ma'am, I know here you're the acting airport director.
Good evening. Elsie Borgstead, Airport Acting Director,
How long have you been in that position?
for about 3 months or so.
3 months?
Yes.
And what was your involvement in this investigation?
During the course of termination of the airport
I hate to
security
ask you,
manager.
but need that thing up closer or speak louder.
Apologize.
There we go.
During the course of termination of the airport security manager, there was a need to go into the office previously held by that employee. And in one of those instances, when the acting security manager went in with another supervisor to look for documentation, and opening one of the drawers, and they advised me that they had found a box and money and different items in that box. And so at that time, I went ahead and told them and instructed them not to touch it because they didn't know what the money was for exactly. And so to leave it in its place until internal audit will be coming in. I basically took a hands-off approach, neutral. I went ahead and informed the internal auditor, and I requested assistance to identify some monies that were in an area that would otherwise not be allowed. Normally, the airport security is in charge of all of our perimeter roads and our gates, and basically security and monitoring of both the terminal and all the premises. Cash handling is not something that they're allowed to have there. And should any money be found at any time, they need to bring it into a teller and then process it within the protocols of the city has in place. And so when this situation occurred, again, I contacted internal audit to please come in and assist us with this matter. And then also legal department was also informed, as well as the one co-interim city managers. During the course of the investigation by internal audit, they were able to come into our offices and look and review and take whatever was necessary for their investigation. Several items were retrieved by the audit staff, and they were sealed and left in a vault for their disposal, and including for Laredo Police Department, which later came in and did an investigation as well. So all those items were either documentation or monies were held at that time, like that. At no time did I actually go myself, and I know it was indicated, but at no time was I ever physically touching or grabbed any of that documentation or even the box that was advised.
I have a question for you. Now that you're the new kid on the block with 3 months, have you told your employees they may not handle cash, okay, and they cannot work for other people other than the city during their work times?
That is correct.
Have you told them that?
Yes.
Have you made it in a form that they cannot later on say that you didn't tell them, i.e. sign something?
Yes, a good point, thank you. I think.
If you haven't, I recommend you do it.
Yes, sir. I think, I'm not so sure about the signing off, but we'll go ahead and get that going.
If you don't sign off, you never told them.
Yes. And as far as training, cash policy handling and cash policy procedures, and not taking money as part of our city's civil service, municipal civil service code and procedures that specifically states not to be taking any donations, which was part of the original termination of Ms. Guerra. It was cited as part of the termination procedure after meeting with a PAC meeting to discuss, and normally this is a protocol when we have an employee termination or an issue. And during that meeting with both members of legal, human resources, risk, internal auditor, and city manager's office, discussions were touched in regards to both cash handling policies that were broken or violated, and different issues referenced in regards to the municipal civil service as well, that are very strict, and really it's no different than any other positions that during your scope of your work and when you're hired, it's very specific on what the employee is hired to do. If you're a custodian, you focus on your work and you don't touch money, you don't handle money. If you're somebody from legal, you don't go and take payments at legal department unless there's a clerk or a teller that handles that. And the same applies to our department. We have very specific people and locations within our department that are only allowed to handle money. Why? Because they receive all the proper training and they have all the materials in place in order to follow that. And then there's a vault as well in order to handle that money and then handle it over to the proper procedures. And so for this particular situation, it should have not ever taken place.
Thank you.
I've got a question. When you have a new employee coming in, what training do you give them, or who trains them?
Again, depends on the scope of their job requirement. There's at the beginning, there's an orientation by the city that all city employees undertake, and it's actually a 2-day orientation done at different times. In this particular situation, for airport police supervisor, airport security supervisor, the employees are coming in and they undergo a different rotation of shifts in order to cross-train with different members and the officers, the supervisors, and the security manager. And they have to do hands-on training. It's a very specialized field. We don't have a city department that oversees every aspect of every employment out there. But we definitely give all their employees training on safety, security, and FAA requirements. We do have to follow 2 federal regulators, which is our Federal Aviation Administration and Transportation Security Administration as well, including city policy and departmental policies. In this particular case, for ethics ordinance, Ms. Guerra did participate in required training on May 15 to 2018 in the morning, as a matter of fact, where she, and along with other employees, had to go and partake in this ethics ordinance.
Okay, another question I have, do the employees out there go to ethics training to know what they can and cannot do? And do they sign off when they do that?
Right, so the city did in May, middle of May of 2018, there was a course done by the city as a whole, and all of our officers had to attend. And we have a list of those officers that attended.
And did Mrs. Guerra do an ethics training course?
Yes, sir.
So she should have known that she was in violation of the code, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
My question that I had was, how is it possible that this program was running for 5 years or 4 years prior to this time around, and administration not know about it? That's kind of my concern.
Yeah.
How?
So the program, if you will, was more of an employee-driven. A few toys, some soccer balls, some Barbies, and put in a box, and they would take like 40 toys that the rest of the employees would donate, and then give them to a children's organization. It's something very small, and fairly new per se, but at no time was it allowed for any monies to be handled.
I think that I think there's good intentions here, but it can easily be manipulated into what now has become a big problem. And so how it was allowed is my question, because if it's not approved by the city of Laredo, how was it allowed for the employees to participate in such a program? And if the testimony of Ms. Guerra is correct, if the director of the security is the one actually pushing for this program, why is it that it was never addressed? Or why is it that none of the 20 employees filed a complaint and said, hey, I'm required to volunteer my Saturdays or my Sundays or my after hours for this program that we're supposed to be doing? I just find it a little concerning that it's been running for several years and no one knows what's really going on. And so that's kind of my concern there.
I heard from one of the auditors, and please bear with me, that the prior years, it was only a toy and no cash.
That is correct.
Was that, in other words, and it was after hours by the employees donating their time to pick up the toys from different locations and deliver it to a central location. Is that true?
It was a box and no different like a food drive where you place a box in the front and you just drop it off random. And I'll tell you that from what I understand of the program is that it was mostly really employees one another helping. It really started with it, from my understanding, from a couple of the officers that wanted to help out kids. And then it just kind of, the word got around and they wanted to help out. So it wasn't so much, I think, of like an annual 5K run per se. It was more of a couple of individuals that wanted to do something nice for Christmas. And I think you're right where you say the intentions were maybe nice, but it was handled very wrong for this particular year. And Ms. Guerra was correct in stating that the previous security manager was terminated as well, early February or so.
I got where were the donated toys stored? Were they there at the airport or off the airport?
So after reviewing the information as the auditor was coming in, yes, they were being stored in a room in the airport.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from anyone?
Given that this year was the year that the program, I guess, from what you're telling us, this is a year that it really went over the top where you all were able to, like Ms. Guerra said, donate as many toys, much more than what you'd ever done in previous years and stuff. There had to have been, was there somebody in particular that was pushing that initiative to say, hey, this year let's make Gray Santa like the best Gray Santa there ever was and stuff, and trying to, go and solicit, go do things like solicit money and go look for more toys, go use other resources to try to make this as big as it can possibly be.
From the information I'm being made aware during the course of the investigation by internal auditor, really it's driven by Ms. Guerra. And at times during email confirmations and copies of solicitation letters, here and there, there's maybe an initial or a signature by the previous security manager requesting a donation on city's letterhead. And so, again, it's not something that we would have condoned during these hours.
Okay.
I have a question. Who, Ms. Guerra, I think the auditor testified back in November, the director was approached by a receipt that one of the vendors was requesting, and at that time, who was that employee? Who was the administrator who said, you cannot do this?
The previous airport director.
The previous. Why wasn't there a complaint filed then? Do you know why?
I'm not sure. I was not part of the meeting.
You don't know why wasn't there a
But
complaint
I
filed?
know I know he did speak to both employees, Ms. Guerra, who was handling the funds, if you will, or at the time what was understood to be an isolated incident, and was told that they cannot accept any monies. And so the directive, from what I understand, was to immediately return that check that had happened maybe a few hours before, or the day before.
Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am. Do any members of the commission feel we need to question any of the other
I don't know what they have to offer.
witnesses? I don't either.
Want to ask them if they have anything to offer?
Mr. De Hoyos?
Just ask him if he has anything new to offer. If he doesn't,
Good afternoon, members of the commission.
Just want to see if you have anything to add to what's already been provided by others.
So basically, I know I've been hearing about this program over and over. Let me explain to you how this whole program really started. It did start in April of 2014. The previous security manager before this last one that was let go from the city of Laredo, himself, myself, and officer that's no longer with the city of Laredo either. The officer came to us and kind of requested that he wanted to do something. He was heavily involved with the Laredo Community College, or Laredo College now, in giving out to the public. So he came up, he presented the idea to us where he wanted to literally start a program within the agency, also to give out to the community. Myself and the former security manager, we kind of basically told him, well, you're gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to ask for permission. Once we get the permission, then we'll give you the green light. Myself and the previous security manager, Mr. Torres, we did go and we asked for permission from the previous director and the assistant director. We explained to them how the program was going to work, and I'll explain to you how that worked. We explained to them how the program was going to work and how we, the officers, were going to partake in the program. They gave us the green light. We proceeded. The program officially started. We went out on our volunteer time and we talked to the tenants of the airport. We figured that the airport was a small community in itself. We knew a lot of the people, so basically we asked them if there was any possible way if we could place a box in their facility for people to donate. Anybody with customers coming in, pilots, fueling company, anybody to come in and just donate. At no point did we did explain to them, we never forced them to donate. We never told them to fill up the box. So all we asked is that, once, we gave them a deadline that we were going to come back and pick up that box. And we said, if it's full or not, don't worry about it. We went to many locations. I think we dropped 10 boxes off that first year. We went to many locations and we only were able to collect 23 toys out of the 10 boxes. So we came back after hours. All this was done after hours. We collected the toys. We took an inventory on our own voluntary time. And then we filled up the toys in a pickup truck. We took them. We also selected the location which we were going to donate, which was Casa Misericordia. We were fully aware that there's a green Santa out there, there's a blue Santa out there, and then there's a Webb County Sheriff's Office as well. We didn't want to step on any toes. So basically, we literally had to do some research and find out where do we donate these toys to, which we selected Casa Misericordia. That was the very, very first entity that we selected, and the same entity we kept for 4 years in a row. We took the toys, we inventoried them, we took them out to Casa Misericordia, and we literally gave them to the sister in charge. And we said, look, it's a small donation. Hopefully you can accept them, give them out. You know, we apologize. It's not that many, but maybe in the future years as we go along, it'll get better. It did. We continued to drop boxes every year, and the boxes got bigger and bigger. At no point did we ever force any officers to donate volunteer hours. We put it out there and we said, anybody wants to help, by all means. You're not being forced, you're not being told. We're not here as supervisors to tell you you must donate volunteer hours. It was all whoever wanted to be there. And we got quite a bit of officers that volunteered their time. Year after year, we went from 23 toys to, I think at one point we ended up with 150 toys, all in boxes that we were just dropping off at different locations. The Via Laredo restaurant that's there at the airport, we put a box there, and that was literally the location where we ended up with the most toys. At no point did we guard the boxes. We didn't put signs in it. We basically just, you know, all it had was, if you want to donate to Casa Misericordia, you're more than welcome. The toys go in here. That was it. That was that simple. Yes, sir.
Officer, just a quick question. I guess, tell me, prior to 2018, were there any cash solicitations?
Not one single time.
So you're saying the 4 years prior to 2018, in your involvement, there was never any cash solicitations for this program?
That is correct. No cash.
Or gift cards?
None.
It was just toys?
That is correct.
Okay.
In the 4 prior years, did you all use any city resources, letterheads, computers to text anybody, or just y'all
None.
just put signs up there saying, if you want to donate, please donate?
That is correct. That is correct. And
What changed in year 18?
The former security manager that was let go, he placed Ms. Guerra in charge of that. We did, you know, at one point advise them that taking cash was prohibited. I myself and Supervisor Jimenez advised them that taking cash was prohibited. That's why we don't do boot brigades, we don't do car washes, we don't sell tickets, we don't do anything dealing with cash. Basically, the previous security manager told me not to worry about it, and that I needed to mind my own business, and if anybody asked for us to point those questions in his direction. So I stepped away completely from that whole program. The former security manager did tell us that since we were supervisors, we were mandated to donate volunteer hours to the program. So that's how a lot of these supervisors did end up in toy drives or helping out with this whole toy drive. I mean, this whole Gray Santa operation. I know that one of you all mentioned how many of us we're out there. There's 20 sworn peace officers for the airport, and I want to say that maybe out of the 20, 17 may have participated in the program at one given point or another, and only because we were kind of afraid of what the security manager would have done if we would not have volunteered that time.
Well, that was one of my concerns with the acting director, was good intentions were there, but it can easily be manipulated, and you just stated to that fact.
Yes, sir.
It's understood that you have to participate in the program. It wasn't a requirement, but it's understood that you have to donate, and you have to go and volunteer, and you have to be part of that program because it's a small unit. And so my concern is, if this is something that the whole department was participating, why is it that no one ever filed a complaint? Fully know well that getting cash was not acceptable. Why is it that no one filed a complaint? Even today, we're here, we're not here because somebody filed a complaint. We're here because they found monies on the supervisor's desks. No one filed a complaint. So that's my concern is, why is it that it took all these years and no one filed a complaint?
Like I mentioned to you, sir, 2014 to 2017, no one is being forced to go. You're on your own, literally. Not one single time did we ever force anybody to go. If only of us, in the very beginning, it was only 2 officers that literally.
So it was a different manager in charge back then?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A different security manager. Never did he force us. Not until 2018,
Well, the
where
new-
things different.
Well, the new manager was in there.
Yes, sir. That's when he's the one that ended up forcing us to basically, he assigned us to those duties, actually. It was an actual duty assigned. There is an email out there that we have access to that it literally stated there, the duties, and they listed the Gray Santa special events as one of those duties. So, that's when it went the wrong way.
I've got another question for you. How long have you been with the airport police?
I've been there 17 years, sir.
And when you started, what was the training that you received as you started?
Sir, we go through the same type of academy as the Laredo Police Department. We're state certified Texas peace officers. And throughout the certain sections of the academy, we go through ethics training. They teach us ethics. I think it's like almost a week. It's a 40-hour training of ethics, nothing but ethics. I got hired. I don't recall in 2001 if there was any type of training, to be honest with you. I don't remember. But I did go to an ethics training last year. And as a matter of fact, I went with Ms. Guerra to that training. We both sat in the class together.
Okay, and at the ethics training, do they, how can I say, go out and say, hey, these are things you cannot do?
Yes, it talks about taking gifts, yes. It did talk about that. It did not talk about cash handling. No, I didn't see that part there.
So say like gifts, someone comes and say, hey, I got $200 for you. Let me get this by, trying to bribe you. Do they get into that
Yes.
aspect of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, officer.
Thank you.
Do we need to visit with
I don't know
you?
if she's got anything, the only thing is she's got something she wants to say. I mean,
Ms. Jimenez, Officer Jimenez, did you need to add anything to this?
Sure.
Come on up, please. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Joanna Jimenez, and basically, I've never volunteered for this program in the past. I got an email. I know at the beginning, Ms. Luxandra Guerra did ask me if I wanted to help her out as a volunteer and whenever I would have time. I did say yes, but later on, I received an email from the previous chief assigning me to it doesn't say specifically Gray Santa on my email. It says special functions and duties, something to the extent. And it was for the Gray Santa in particular. I was not in the office, in the police office last year when they started the Gray Santa. I was pregnant, so they moved me to the opposite side of the terminal where also it has to do with security, running backgrounds, fingerprinting, and all, and to the extent I volunteered my time, assigned and volunteered my time. In December, I went on leave because I was pregnant and I had my child. So I was doing the volunteer in November and late November and December.
Okay.
did you ever receive any cash?
No, sir.
That's all I got.
May I add that I did go with Ms. Luxandra Guerra to the Walmart on Loop 20, and she did have 2 gift cards, each for $250, and we got the toys for that amount, the $500, and exactly. Well, I'm sorry, some cents were left on the gift cards.
Was this during working hours when you went
Yes,
to
sir.
Walmart?
Yes, it was. And like I said, I was 8 months pregnant and almost 9 months. I've never volunteered for this program before. I have a small child. But like I said, I was assigned to it.
Did you ask why you were going in working hours?
No, I didn't want to ask. I did mention
You
it
just
to.
followed your boss, right?
Pretty much. I don't know if you all have any other questions
That's
for me.
That's all I got.
You receive the same training as all the other officers. You have to, what is it, a mandated ethics course training, what, once a year?
I received, well, like every other employee, I received the training when I was hired. And then I received another one on May of last year, 2018.
I'm
Which-
just asking, you know, I'm trying to set a pattern that all officers have to take that ethics training course, and you've already done that.
Well, I received several actually. One for when I became a supervisor, I was sent to an ethics training, and that was the entire day at one of the city office. And then I went to another training, which it was the one everybody else attended to, and then the law enforcement training, which has to do with ethics, and
Okay. Another question, when you went to Walmart, were you in a city vehicle or a private vehicle?
in a city vehicle, sir.
You used a city vehicle for
Yes.
on time? Okay, thank you.
I have a question. In your own recollection, if you can remember, how many other officers participated during working hours in this type of a program?
I myself wrapped a box with gift, like a,
Besides you, who else participated?
Not names, just.
Just, it was, I don't want names, it's just
Okay.
a number. You can say.
number more or less, I want to say maybe 4. And it was not every day. Maybe I saw them 1 or 2 times within the entire year last year. And volunteer wise, when I attended that 2-3 hours at Walmart with Ms. Guerra, the first time I think we got maybe 4 volunteers besides myself and Ms. Guerra. And then
6 employees.
I'm sorry?
Total of 6 employees
Yes,
went to
sir.
Walmart.
Yes, sir. The first time. And then the second time it was just me and Ms. Guerra because it was really cold and raining. I was not wearing a uniform, like I said. I gave birth to my child, I would say a month later.
Thank you, officer. Appreciate it. Ms. Paul, I see that the respondent believes wants to say something. Do I ask the members of the commission if they want to hear her, or?
Yes, you have that discretion if you want
Ms.
to. do
Guerra, the
it.
respondent, has been signaling she wants to say something. Are you wishing
We
to
were
entertain?
gonna get into the who to.
Right now, we'll go in there, but
I agree.
you want to let her speak?
Sure.
You're okay with that? Sure. Ms. Guerra, do you have something to say? Just brief.
Yes, I wanted to mention, I know Captain De Hoyos, he mentioned that it was, Chief Infante made it mandatory. It was not mandatory, it was voluntarily. Chief Infante never obligated us to go and ask for any toys. Matter of fact, I believe Captain De Hoyos only volunteered twice at a Walmart. Also, on the ethics training, we never got ethics training when I first started in the department. And Ms. Borgestead took an oath here in front, and she still lied about that. We never got any trainings on ethics. Captain Doyle also took the stand and took an oath, and he still lied about the ethics training. Maybe in May 18th we did, but when we first started the department, we never got any trainings. We've never had any trainings of any kind. I never got no trainings. Also, as he mentioned, yes, we did get a letter from Chief Infante that we're in charge of certain areas in the department, but Chief Infante always made sure that the airport was covered at all times. Yes, we worked. We went during, like Sergeant Jimenez mentioned, that we did go during working hours in the city vehicle, but it was towards the end of our shift. And like I said, the Gray Santa was part of the airport. I mean, I don't know why they say that, that it was not part of the airport. If I knew that we needed special permission from city council or from anybody to do this Santa program, I would have done it the correct way. The cash handling, I never took a training for cash handling. I never knew. If I knew I was gonna go through this, I would have not done it ever. Now, like I said, I can provide letters of, we provided, for Casa Misericordia, we service 62 families. 62 families, we're talking about families, 6, 8 people per family. We service Children's Advocacy Center. We service a church in Rio Bravo. We service Casa, a foster care. We service the kids from there, plus their siblings. Everybody got gifts. We have letters from all these people. We have pictures, videos of how this Gray Santa was. It was a big impact for the children. You should have seen the smiles. I have videos. We played games. We raffled bikes. If I was gonna do it with bad intentions, I would have not done it. I did it with good intentions, with good faith, to put a smile to these needy children from our community. And the name of the city was out there, and it looked good because, these people said, I hope this year you do it again.
Let me say this, Ms. Guerra. Sorry to interrupt you, but I don't think the commission is saying that what you did was, didn't have good intentions. We understand that it was for children. What we're questioning is the approach, how it was handled. And so I think that's the main issue for us. We're not questioning your motives. We understand that it was for children and it served a lot of families and it was good with good intentions. But at the same time, things have to be done correctly. And my question to you is, at what point, who made the decision to start collecting monies?
Me and the chief decided to do that, to collect the monies.
Why? Why change, if for the past 4 years was toys, donations, why change it to now, let's solicit funds?
Because the people that donated the money are all from the medical field, because I work for a doctor. So all those people are medical, so they never had time to purchase a gift card or do any, so the best thing they would do is give a check. So that's when we said, okay, so we're gonna get the check, but then we didn't have a nonprofit organization, but I didn't know that at the time. Because like I said, I did it previous in Rio Bravo and we never went through all that, okay? I know Rio Bravo is a small city, right? Not compared to the city of Laredo, but we kept all that money, we kept all the receipts. Say today you give me a $200 check, I would go cash it, give the receipt to Chief Infante, give the money to him because he would keep it in his desk under lock. I would never touch the money. And the following day, if I had to go purchase some toys with that money, I would go after hours, say, Chief, can I have the $200 so I can go purchase toys and I'll bring you the receipt. I would go purchase the toys, the next day I would come back, I would go drop off the toys at the city, and then the following day, the chief was not there, I would hand him out the receipt and he would put it in the envelope. Now, Ms. Borgeston mentioned something about when they found the envelope, a box and all that in my cabinet. Yes, Chief Infante went with Internal Affairs after a month that he got terminated. He went and he told the Internal Affairs officer, this envelope belongs to Sergeant Guerra. The way I left it, it was here on my desk. I'm gonna seal it and I'm gonna put it in her cabinet. So when I went that day in Graveyard, I found that somebody went through my cabinet and took that envelope. Now, the auditor's department said that envelope was open when they received it. So who had gone through that envelope? And she mentioned about a receipt, the bikes. Yes, but what about the receipt where Chief Infante bought the material for the Santa suit, for the Santa hats? The other receipts that are missing from downtown where we purchased colognes and perfumes for the kids on the wish list. There's like 6 or 7 receipts that are missing. When I went to Laredo PD, because they filed charges against me for that money, when I went, I asked them if I could see what receipts they had turned in. And that's when I found out that all those receipts were missing. Those receipts are not there. And like I said, I have witnesses that those because people went to purchase those things for me.
Let me interrupt you here. Do you recognize now, after all of this process, that it was wrong?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you, Ms. Guerra. Go ahead and wrap it up now. Thank you. Do we need a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we get some legal advice and adjourn to
Closed session
Closed session.
for the purpose of consulting with counsel?
That's correct.
I
Okay,
second the motion.
okay. All those in favor? Against? Motion carries. It is 7:25.
And just to add, the figure section numbers would be under 551.071 and/or 551.074 of the Texas Open Meetings Act.
Correct. Okay, we're back on the record. Time is 7:37. No action was taken in closed session. We're back on item number 6. We've already heard the evidence and testimony presented. Anybody wish to make a motion or comment?
If no comment, I move that based upon the evidence presented, that Ms. Guerra has violated sections 2.02A, 2.05C1, 2.06A, and 2.03A of the Code of Ethics, and direct the city manager or designee to recommend termination of employment of Ms. Guerra.
Is there a second to the
I
motion?
second it.
Discussion?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Okay, next item is 7, adjournment. Do I have a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
So moved.
And is there a second to it?
Yeah, you don't need one that I second.
All right, you got it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? None passes. We're adjourned.